Well, hello everybody, my name is Roger and welcome to my channel, Rogers Reads. So every year, the Mystery Writers of America present the Edgar Awards, honoring the best in mystery fiction, nonfiction, and television published or produced in the previous year. So they just, a few days ago in fact, just released their short list for 2018, with the final winners being announced on, I believe I have it written here, on April 25th. 2019. So I thought I'd talk briefly about some of the books that made the short list for fiction, which hopefully may be of interest to some of you, because as many of you know, I enjoy reading mystery, thrillers, and suspense. So the categories that I'm going to talk about are Best Novel, Best First Novel, Best Young Adult Novel, and Best Paperback Original. Now, as usual, I'll place a link to all of the books in the description below so you can check them out if you like. So the first category is Best Novel, and we have 6 books in this category. The first is The Liar's Girl by Catherine Ryan Howard. So this book follows Will Hurley, Ireland's most prolific serial killer, who murdered 5 young victims by drowning them in the muddy waters of the Grand Canal. So he was sentenced to life in prison when he was just 19 and is locked away in the city's Central Psychiatric Hospital. So at that time when he was doing these acts, a woman named Alison Smith fell hard for him. And then her best friend became the latest victim of the canal killer. And the canal killer turned out to be her boyfriend. So Alison fled to the Netherlands and in 10 years has never once looked back. So then a young woman's body is found in the Grand Canal, and the detectives end up visiting Will in prison to see if he can assist them in solving what looks like a copycat killing. But instead, Will tells them that he has something new to confess. But there's only one person he's prepared to confess it to, and you guessed it, that's Alison. And supposedly we learn that Will has left out the worst part of all. So, intriguing. So, book number 2 is House Witness by Mike Larson. So, Minority Leader of the House and DeMarco's longtime employer, John Mahoney, has kept more than one secret from his wife over the years, but none of them as so explosive as this one. He has a son, and that son has just been shot dead in a bar in Manhattan. So Mahoney immediately dispatches DeMarco to New York, who I assume is a detective, to assist the prosecutor, and there's supposedly 5 witnesses willing to testify against the killer. But then it appears as though someone is interfering with those witnesses, and that this may be connected to a pattern of cases across the country where somebody is getting witnesses out of the way when the fate of a wealthy defendant is on the line. So interesting. Next book, A Gambler's Jury by Victor Menthos. And this follows attorney Danny Rollins, who meets Teddy Thorne, a mentally challenged teen accused of selling drugs. Now, Danny's pretty positive that she could easily settle the case with a couple of court appearances. But when prosecutors move for an adult felony conviction, Danny suspects that the boy is being used as a pawn in a sinister game. So, book number 4, Down the River Unto the Sea by Walter Mosley. So this follows Joe King Oliver, who was one of New York Police Department's finest investigators, until dispatched to arrest a car thief. He is framed for assault by his enemies within the police department, a charge which lands him in solitary at Rikers Island. So, a decade later, King is a private detective who is broken by the brutality he both suffered and committed while behind bars. So one day he receives a card in the mail from a woman who admits that she was paid to frame him those many years ago, and he realizes that he has no choice but to take the case, figuring out who on the force wanted him disposed of and why. So, King must beat dirty cops, dirty bankers, craven lawyers, all the while keeping his daughter far away from the underworld in which he works. So, sounds kind of good. Next book, Only to Sleep by Lawrence Osborne. So this is a Philip Marlowe novel, and he is enjoying his retirement at the terrace bar when in saunter two men dressed like undertakers. His mission then becomes to investigate the death of Donald Zinn, supposedly drowned off of his yacht, leaving behind a much younger and now very rich wife. But is Zinn actually alive, or the pair living off the spoils? These are the questions that Mr. Marlowe must uncover. And number 6, which is the last book in this category, is A Treacherous Curse by Deanna Rayborn. So this takes place in London in 1888. So the story follows Victoria Speedwell, who can't resist the allure of an exotic mystery, particularly one involving her colleague, Stoker. As it turns out, his former expedition partner has vanished from an archaeological dig with a priceless artifact unearthed from the tomb of an Egyptian princess. So this disappearance is just the latest unfortunate event that has plagued the expedition, and rumors abound that the curse of a vengeful princess has been unleashed as the shadowy figure of Anubis himself and now stalks the streets of London. But the ancient curse is not the only challenge, as malevolent enemies emerge from Stoker's past. So now Veronica must separate facts from fantasy to unravel a web of duplicity that threatens to cost Stoker everything. So those are the 6 novels in the Best Novel category. So the next category is Best First Novel. And the first one on the list is A Knife in the Fog by Bradley Harper. So this is the start of a new series and follows physician Arthur Conan Doyle, yes, that Arthur Conan Doyle, who takes a break from his practice to assist London police in tracking down Jack the Ripper. So sounds like fun. Book number 2 is The Captives. So this follows a woman convicted of a brutal crime, the prison psychologist who recognizes her as his high school crush, and their reunion, which has dangerous consequences for the both of them. Book number 3 is The Last Equation of Isaac Severy by Nova Jacobs. So this follows Hazel Severy, who receives a letter from her adoptive grandfather, a mathematician named Isaac Severy, days after he dies in his suspected suicide. But in his letter, he alludes to a secret organization, an organization that is after his bombshell equation, and he charges Hazel with safely delivering it to a trusted colleague. But first she needs to find out where the equation is hidden. And book number 5 is Bearskin by James A. McLaughlin. So this follows Rice Moore, who is hiding out from some dangerous people while working in a remote forest preserve in Virginia and Appalachia, where his main job includes tracking wildlife and refurbishing cabins. But when bears are killed in the preserve and Rice's obsession with catching the predator escalates, leading to hostile altercations with the locals and attention from both the law and Rice's employers, Rice puts into motion a plan that could expose the poachers, but risks in revealing his whereabouts to the dangerous people he's running from in the first place. So this one sounds kind of intriguing to me. Book number 5, Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. So for years, rumors of the Marsh Girl have haunted Berkeley Cove, which is a quiet town on the North Carolina coast. So in late 1969, when handsome Chase Andrews is found dead, the locals immediately suspect Kaya Clark, the so-called Marsh Girl. But Kaya is not what they think, and she has survived for years alone in the marsh. So then the time comes when she yearns for something more out of life. She learns to be loved by someone. So when two young men from town become intrigued by her wild beauty, Kaya opens herself up to a new life with compelling results, as so the blurb says. So this one sounds kind of intriguing. So that is it for that category. So the next category is the best young adult. And the first book is entitled Contagion, and that is written by Aaron Bowman. So after receiving a distress call from a drill team on a distant planet, a skeleton crew is sent into deep space to perform a standard search and rescue mission. But when they arrive, they discovered the planet is littered with the remains of the project, including the team members' dead bodies. As they try to determine what could have possibly decimated an entire project like this, they discover that some things are best left buried and some monsters are only too ready to awaken. Intriguing. So the second book is entitled Blink by Sasha Dawn. So Blink follows Josh, who, when he was 4, a little girl named Rachel was kidnapped and never found. 12 years later, Chatham Claiborne appears, apparently on the hunt for her runaway sister. But Josh suspects, and I don't know how, but that she is somehow tied to the mystery of the little girl, the missing little girl, Rachel. But so Josh ends up falling for Chatham, but she's quite elusive and he can't tell if she's lying about certain things. But he's sure that once he finds out the truth about her, he'll be able to unlock the mystery of what happened to Rachel and in the process find out who the true Chatham Claiborne really is. So this one sounds kind of interesting. Book number 3 is After the Fire by Will Hill. So this is a gripping story of survival and escape and follows Moonbeam, who lived inside the fence, where she was never allowed to leave the property, never allowed to talk to outsiders, and never allowed to speak her mind because Father John controlled everything. And disobeying Father John always came with terrible consequences. But Moonbeam is starting to see the lies behind Father John's words, and she wants him to be found out. And then comes a fire. So that's all I know about this one, but sounds like something I might enjoy reading. So the next book is A Room Away from the Wolves by Nova Ren Suma. So this follows Bina, who suddenly finds herself kicked out of her own home, but only temporarily. So then she recalls 18 years ago, her mother had taken refuge at a place called Catherine House. So now, without a place to go, she returns there, but finds out that there are things about the house and about her mother that she never knew. So this is a gothic ghost story set at a boarding house for troubled young women, and is about who deserves a second chance, how we lie to those around us and ourselves, and what lengths girls will go to in order to save one another. So, you know me, I love me a ghost story, so I may be adding this one to my TBR list. And book number 5, and this is the last one in this category, is Sadie by Courtney Summers. So this follows Sadie, whose entire world crumbles when her sister Maddie is found dead. So after a somewhat botched police investigation, Sadie is determined to bring her sister's killer to justice, and hits the road following a few meager clues in order to find him. Then West McKay, a radio personality working on a segment about small forgotten towns in America, he overhears Sadie's story at a local gas station and becomes obsessed with finding the missing girl. So he starts his own podcast as he tracks Sadie's journey, trying to find out what happened and hoping to find her before it's too late. So this one sounds very intriguing. So the last category I'm going to talk about is Best Paperback Original Novel. And we have 6 books in that category. So the first book is entitled If I Die Tonight by Allison Galen. So this follows Jackie Reed, who is feeling that she doesn't know her sons as well as she used to because her boys aren't boys anymore, they're becoming men. Men that she's not sure she recognizes or even sure that she can trust. So when one of her son's classmates is killed in suspicious circumstances, people start asking questions. Was it really a hit and run? A carjacking gone wrong? Or something much more sinister? And where was her son that night? So this one caught my attention. It sounds like a read I'd enjoy. So the next book is entitled Hiroshima Boy by Naomi Hirohara. So this follows an elderly, curmudgeonly, often reluctant sleuth/gardener named Mas Are, who returns to Hiroshima to bring his best friend's ashes to a relative on the tiny offshore island of Ino. So then he gets caught up in the mysterious death of a teenage boy, so Mas decides that he cannot return to Los Angeles until he finds a way to see justice served. So this author won Edgar Awards and various other honors for many of her Mas Are mystery series books, which I'm not really familiar with at all. And as I'm always looking for a new mystery series to delve into, I just may check them out. So number 3 in the category is Under a Dark Sky by Lori Rader Day. So this follows Eden Wallace, who, after her husband has died, stopped working, has given up her love of photography, and is plagued by night terrors. We learn that she has a paralyzing phobia of the dark. So one day she finds paperwork in her husband's effects indicating that he had reserved a week at a dark sky park, and she decides to go. But when she arrives at the park, the guest suite she thought was a private retreat is teeming with a group of 20-somethings, all college friends who are there for some sort of reunion. So, horrified, she decides to return home the next day. But then a scream wakes the house in the middle of the night. And as it turns out, one of the friends has been murdered, and now everyone, including Eden, is a suspect. So we learn that everyone is keeping secrets here, but there is only one murderer. And as mishaps continue to befall the group, Eden has to make sense of the chaos and lies to evade a ruthless killer. But she'll have to do it before dark falls. So I always kind of like these whodunit type of mysteries with a group of people involved. So this may be one I'll check out. So number 4 on the list is entitled The Perfect Nanny by Leila Slimani. So this follows Miriam, who decides to return to work as a lawyer after having children, and her husband are on the lookout for the perfect nanny for their son and daughter. They consider themselves fortunate to have found Louise, a quiet, polite, devoted woman who sings to the children, cleans the family's apartment, stays late without complaint, and hosts kiddie parties, also without complaint. But jealousy, resentment, and suspicions begin to mount. Now, I read that this novel draws on elements from the real story of a nanny from the Dominican Republic who is accused of killing 2 children under her care. So the blurbs that I've read of this book describe it as chilling, twisted, and creepy. So color me intrigued. This sounds like something right up my alley. Book number 5 is entitled Under My Skin by Lisa Unger. So this follows Poppy, whose husband Jack was brutally murdered during his morning run a year ago. Though she's trying to move on, what happened on that day is still haunting her, and now she is sure that she's being followed. But she is sleep deprived and is secretly self-medicating, so she's unable to separate her dreams from reality. In fact, she feels like she's losing her mind. But what if she's not? What if she's actually remembering what happened on that day? What if her husband wasn't who he said he was. Well, as it turns out, her husband's killer ends up being closer than she thinks. So yeah, so this sounds super creepy and the kind of a suspense novel that I would enjoy. So that's about it for our discussion on the Edgar's nominees. There are a few other categories that I haven't gone over. There's Best Fact Crime, which I have to admit I've never been one for true crime. Best Critical/Biographical. Best Short Story. Best Children's Novel. Best TV Episode Teleplay. So if any of these categories interest you, you can find them at theedgars.com. I just didn't want this video to be too cut off long, much longer than it already is. So yeah, so that is it for the Edgar's long list. And as I mentioned, the winners will be announced on April 25th of 2019. So have you read any of these books? If so, which ones? And what did you think of them? Let me know in the comments. But my TBR list has definitely grown since consulting with this list. So yeah, so that is it for now. As always, I thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate all of your support, and I will talk to you in the next video. Oh, and also, if you like this video, click the like button below as it helps my channel out. Roger and out.